Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. Penn State falls to Ohio State 38-14, shut out in the second half out there in Columbus, Ohio. Rich Scarcella will be joining me, filling in for Sean Kane today. We'll be talking about Penn State's loss to Ohio State, the coaching search, Terry Smith's press conference today on Monday afternoon, as well as all of your fan questions. Make sure you are subscribed, whether you're watching live on YouTube or if you are listening on podcast. Appreciate you being here. Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, not as always, but at least today, Rich Scarcella. How are you doing today, Rich?
I'm great, Corey. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on in a pinch. I appreciate you filling in. Sean is almost been a dad for a week, but we're giving him some time to I don't know if Hardcore Penn State Football has a specific paternity leave. We haven't figured that out in our benefits package, but I figured we could at least give him a full week.
That's fair. That would be fair.
But definitely isn't paid, so he's gonna have to figure that out on his own. Actually, he's actually getting hit twice. I don't even know if it's a joke anymore. It was like kind of funny for the first week of the shutdown, but Sean does work for the government, and so he hasn't had a paycheck for a month. And at first, like the shutdown jokes and not getting paid was funny, but now it's like not as funny anymore. After like a month, it's not as funny
at all.
But Sean, hope you're doing well. Rich, thank you for filling in. Today we're going to talk about Penn State's loss to Ohio State, which I don't think would be of surprise to anybody. Talk about what kind of happened there and what we saw from that game. We're going to talk a little bit about the coaching search, the latest kind of news in that front, as well as Terry Smith's press conference today, which is a little bit shorter than James Franklin's press conferences. And then we'll wrap up with all your fan questions. Rich, how was the game on Saturday? What if anything, did you have any takeaways that were things you didn't know that you now know, or are we just is it kind of what we expected?
Gosh, well, I they don't deserve a trophy or a pat on the back, but I was surprised, like a lot of people, that the game was close at halftime. Penn State did a really good job. That 15-play, 75-yard drive may have been its best drive of the season, considering it was against the number one defense in the country.
Absolutely.
They get the turnover that they needed, and they converted it into a touchdown. And the fans at Ohio Stadium are looking up and going, "Wow, 17-14." That ended quickly, starting with the long pass to Cornell Tate that set up a touchdown, and then really, a couple of us were talking about it on the drive back to the hotel, and that kind of ended the game. It just seemed like that was the end of the game, even though it was only 24-14. You had the change at right tackle with Donko starting in place of Nolan Rucci. Cooper Cousins getting a start because they went big package, jumbo package. I thought Grunkemeyer again showed pocket presence. No false start penalties. Didn't seem like there was any confusion with getting plays in or communicating. Missed a couple receivers. Yeah, that's going to happen especially second college start, and especially against that team. But again, the defense, allowing Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate to get behind them, the corners, especially after Terry Smith made it clear that it was a point of emphasis during the week. And really, I know I brought it up at Terry's press conference today. No sacks, no tackles for loss. I didn't think there were 15 pressures. Oh, that's what PFF have. PFF had.
I love that question.
Yeah, there. It just seemed to me like Julian Sayin had an eternity to throw, and on a lot of those. He only threw 3 incompletions. He wasn't sacked, and he ran twice. So you could do the math. Whatever. The point is that Penn State only has 14 sacks in 8 games. They only have 5 in 5 Big Ten games. Dennis-Sutton, preseason All-American, has 2 sacks all season and hasn't had one since Florida International. That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. But it is a big reason why, part of the reason why the defense has struggled so badly.
To that point, I've been kind of tracking the TFLs all year, but if you want to just talk about sacks, in 2024, Penn State was tied for 7th in the country with 29 sacks in conference. And that does include the Big Ten championship. So they averaged almost 3 sacks per conference game. This year, so far, and I know it's not over, but so far they are ranked 110th. They have 5 sacks in conference, and they're averaging a single sack per game. So just drastically different. And I know Terry Smith's whole different scheme, I don't necessarily buy that.
No Abdul Carter. Yeah, okay. No
Abdul Carter is fine. I agree with that. But
that's legit. He had 12 sacks last year. And they had 44 in 16 games. That includes all the games. You're telling me you only have 14 sacks in 8 games, and it's because of a change in defense? I don't know. I mean, Dennis-Sutton and Keon Wiley had a chance to sack San on a big 3rd down play. The score was only 10-7, and they let him get away, and he scrambled for the 1st down, and 3 plays later, 45-yard touchdown pass to Tate. Again, it's just okay. Let's for argument's sake, they had 15 pressures. They still didn't have any sacks. They had no sacks. That can't happen. And
worse, honestly.
What's that?
It's honestly worse if you do say you had 15 pressures.
Yeah, if it was 15 pressures and you had no sacks, then something's really wrong. But yeah, it like a lot of things with this season, things are really hard to figure out, and they don't make sense.
And I think that's part of it too. I mean, the tackles for loss is the exact same story as the sacks. But and I don't know if Terry Smith was trying to throw Jim Knowles under the bus, but in a way, I kind of took it like he was, because if the scheme is not designed to get pressure on the quarterback, who wants that scheme? I don't know if anybody would want that scheme.
Yeah, and I don't understand that. Look at Ohio State's numbers last year. I don't have them right in front of me, but they were the number 1 defense in the country, and I'm going to bet they were at least in the top 20 in sacks in 2024, maybe higher.
Yeah, they were 5th in TFLs in 2024 with 113. Yeah. Right now, Penn State sits, if you were curious, with TFLs for this year. Penn State is sitting at 66 with 47 on the year, which is about 5.8 on the season. They're averaging almost 3 more TFLs per game last year than this year.
Yeah, it's really not the system when you look at what Ohio State did last year.
Right.
It's not the system. It does that. Maybe he was just trying to, if not throw Jim Knowles under the bus, he was trying to at least defend the players. But to me, the numbers are the NCAA numbers are the NCAA numbers.
And I think too, right? I don't think it is defensible to the players, right? I mean, Dennis-Sutton just has not been enough, has not done enough, has not been. I think we weren't sure going in if he was going to be, the guy on this defensive line. And we kind of gave him a little bit of a break because he had Abdul Carter next to him that maybe got all the attention. And so, Denai wasn't expected to do a bunch. He had a really good couple games in the playoffs, so that made you feel pretty good about coming into this year. But I think the verdict's in. He is a really good player. I think he could be, in the NFL for a long time as a good player. But he is not a splash player. He is not a game wrecker, game changer. Have to plan your entire offensive scheme around him. Just doesn't have that.
No, at least you haven't seen that this year. I mean, he benefited from the presence of Carter last year. There's no doubt about that. And the other guy is Zane Durant. I mean, I don't watch a ton of interior play, but I'm just looking at his numbers, and and the rushing numbers against Penn State, and you would think that he's not playing as well as he did last year either. And again, these aren't just the only two guys who returned this year who aren't playing well or who have regressed. I mean, that's what I wrote about in my column that's in today's paper, in today's Reading Eagle and the other papers. You can understand if there were just a couple guys who regressed, but this is across the board. And with the exception of Zachy Wheatley and Katron Allen, the veteran guys who came back, all of them have taken a step back. Vega maybe is probably playing about the same, maybe a little better. I forgot about him, but really, I mean, there's a dozen guys, and 9 or 10 of them are playing worse than they did last year, and that tells me it's not just them, that there's something internal. What it is, I don't know. But there's just something going on that they're not playing as well as they did. If it was one or two guys, it would be like, okay, you can understand that. It would be percentages, but it's not.
Yeah, and I don't want you to spoil your paper or your piece in the paper, but I mean, I've struggled with that tremendously as far as, I think it's one of our fan questions today, but it really made me think a lot about, okay, was it really believing the hype too much before the season? And was it really the loss to Oregon that bone crushing? And like, was it really that hard to get back off the mat? Or how much is it not having Franklin there anymore? Or is this all, what did they, and then you can look at, if you don't think it's a larger thing, and you try to look at individual things, like you can look at the offensive line and say, like, do they really miss Frank Leonard that much? Okay, maybe that doesn't explain why Nick Singleton sucks. Does Nick Singleton suck because like they really miss Jaywan Sider that much? And like, okay, well, that explains him. And then it's like the receivers, it's like, well, okay, does like Marcus Hagan stink? Well, that doesn't explain why Stubbs stuck and Cornley's. You can almost keep going down this rabbit hole, and it's just like, okay, like, do we really have to? Is it really a perfect storm of like very small little things not being correct, causing this overarching problem? Or is it just this overarching problem that maybe you could point to some small things that also coincidentally are also bad?
Yeah. I mean, that's what I wrote in the column about it. It's a mystery. You need like somebody, you need a rocket scientist or a mentalist or, like a super sleuth to figure this out. But there is one theory that might carry weight, and somebody has brought this up to me since in the middle of this losing streak. You remember when James Franklin said in the spring about taking it easy on the veteran players because they played so many games and we're not going to push them. Now, maybe there's something there. I don't know, that you don't, instead of keeping your foot on the gas, you took it off the gas, and maybe they tried to regain that in August and it just wasn't there. I don't know. But it just seems like that could be one of many possible factors that the people on the outside like us, we don't know. We just don't know.
Yeah, and Steven on YouTube asks the follow-up to that. He says, do you think it's because they got more money, they got comfortable and lost their edge? Like how much do you think played into that?
No, I mean, I don't believe so. I mean, I in talking to people behind the scenes, that's not it. I mean, they're losing money right now. All these guys are losing money, and that's more, I mean, a lot of money. How many of them were expected to go first round, day 2? And how many of them now are expected to go in the first round or day 2? They've lost a lot of money. So I don't believe that at all. No, I don't.
I mean, just guys that lost a lot of money. I mean, I think the one that Joey Porter Jr. had an interception on Sunday, and it made me think about AJ Harris. And, the joke about Joey Porter Jr., right? Obviously, there was only 31 picks in that round. He goes technically in the second round, 32nd overall, and is not technically a first round pick for Penn State. Still, it has not had a first round pick for a defensive back, and that was almost humorous at that point because we looked at who Penn State had coming back and like, oh, well, Kalen King will probably be a first round pick. And then, okay, Kalen King kind of, turned into what Kalen King ended up being. And then everyone pointed to AJ Harris and like, oh, AJ Harris will probably, and it's almost hysterical at this point. But AJ Harris went from a first round grade to, like, someone asked me the other day, like, does he go in even day 2? I'm like, no, he doesn't probably go in day 2 right now.
He is not.
If
He's
at
the
all.
guy that, yeah, I mean, well, I shouldn't say right. Now he'll get drafted. I just can't believe how badly he's looked at times, Saturday included. The Oregon game or the Northwestern long pass. I don't know. I mean, it makes no sense when he was so good last year. He didn't get much action, and yet everybody said his stock was up. I mean, how about Zane Durant, Deny, then you have in Vega and Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. All of these, I said Zaki's playing better, but all these guys, like Drew Shelton, I'm not saying he was expected to go in the first, second, or third round, but his stock has gone down. And I just don't think it has anything to do with money. I don't. Okay. I really don't, because they're losing more money than they're making.
On defense, this is something also that Michael on YouTube asked about. He basically just said, like, are the players not believing in Jim Knowles? Like, to me, it's probably not so much a belief as much as it's we're playing slower because we don't really know where to go or we don't want to be wrong. I think there is some problem here, and at some degree, you have to put it on Jim Knowles, because if the team isn't understanding what to do, then you got to somehow make it easier for them, regardless of if our players are just stupid or if they're just not getting it. Like, you got to coach the guys you have, and clearly, I mean, the linebackers are a perfect example of this, Rich. Like, if you knew going into the summer that you only had 2 to 3 linebackers you felt good about, Tony Rojas, Amari Campbell, and Dom, and everyone else you didn't trust, and I think that was the exact word he used early in the summer.
He did.
Then you've got to figure something else out. And if it's not for the starters, you've got to basically concede something or compromise to something to say, okay, I'm going to get Kari Jackson in, I'm going to get Alex Tash in, I'm going to get Anthony Speck in, and yes,
whoever.
We may not be as formidable as far as what we want to do scheme-wise, but I got to get these guys in. I got to get them. And that didn't happen. And I feel like now you have to play them because you don't have anybody else. And yet I don't think the scheme is getting any easier, and players are playing at half speed, 3/4 speed right now.
Yeah, Corey, you're right about that. That Knowles deserves at least a part of the blame there, because they knew for a long time that there was a big drop off after Campbell, Rojas, and even Dom. Dom's fine in spots, but you can't, not in 50 snaps a game. And he has a knack for making big plays, but he's also undersized. And I don't want to take anything away from him, because I really like the kid. I think he gives you everything he has. It's just not enough at times. But then if you had nobody behind him, or it's a big drop off, you're right. You have to expect somebody's going to get hurt, whether it was Campbell, Rojas, or DeLuca. So you've got to make an adjustment in some way to make it more if those guys were struggling to understand the intricacies of the defense, you have to make it simpler, at least, so that they can make plays quicker. That's the one thing I remember when Manny Diaz was here. Those guys said his system allowed them to play faster. They didn't have to think as much. And you don't see that, or you don't hear that with this particular defense.
Quite the contrary. And Lambda here mentioned saying we're starting a walk-on and a transfer at linebacker. So much for LBU. And Alex Tash did get in on, and I wanted to make that note that he did play. He actually filled the wrong gap at one point and was very lucky that King Mack made a pretty much a touchdown saving tackle.
Yeah, but I remember that play.
I want, you mentioned Zakee Wheatley, and I think to me, Zakee Wheatley is what almost puzzles me the most, because Zakee Wheatley is playing better. So in this theme across the season where a lot of these players are playing worse, Wheatley seems to be the opposite of that. And so it almost makes it more confusing to me, where if it was this overarching thing, what has Wheatley figured out or done differently than, say, a Nick Singleton or a Zane Durant? That's when I get more confused about this entire. Why was Zakee Wheatley able to figure all this out, but no one else has?
Well, I mean, I have my theories on Nick Singleton because he's, I think they've used him the wrong way. And I think they used him very well on that touchdown drive in the second quarter. And then he only got 3 touches the rest of the game. And they got him outside and get him some confidence, and he was productive. Again, that's separate. Let's go back to Zakee. Zakee has played really well. And you're right. Why is it that he and Katron are the only ones who have really elevated their games? Okay. I don't have an answer, but I do know this. After the game Saturday, Zakee called out guys in the secondary for letting the Ohio State guys get behind them. So did Amari Campbell. Amari Campbell's been asked. He was asked last week on a Zoom call. Was the defense, is it too complicated? He said, it's a little complicated. He goes, but I didn't have any trouble picking it up. I mean, again, so are guys not doing enough studying? Or maybe are they just not good enough? And I'm not talking about a Durant and a Dennis-Sutton. I don't know what they're being asked to do. Are they being asked to do something different than they did last year? Who knows? But Wheatley and Campbell, I mean, Campbell's not a guy who returned, obviously, but they're playing well. Thank goodness for Penn State's sake, because imagine if they weren't playing well, it'd be even worse.
Yeah, I think you can separate the buckets a little bit, because like Dennis-Sutton, Zane Durant are perfect examples of guys that were better because of the ones behind him. Like the defensive tackles allowed Zane Durant to play more 3-tech instead of 1-tech last year than this year. He's not a great 1-tech. He's very good when he can play 3-tech and do some different things there. But when he's getting double teamed almost every single snap, he's not nearly as effective. And I don't think it's that he's bad against double teams, but I think it wears him out way more having to face double teams, and he doesn't get to do as much of the attacking that he likes to do when he can play the 3-tech. And so I think both of them fall in that same category, as the guys around them last year helped more than they are this year, and that slowed them down. But your point, I mean, look, everything that you're talking about right there, I agree with. And to me, and Sean would say this if he was on the show tonight, it points back to, is this a coach-led team or a player-led team? And it seems very obvious to me that there was a lot of lack of leadership and accountability. And that's not something, credit to James Franklin, that's not something that James Franklin can instill. That's not something that Jim Knowles can instill. That's not something that Andy Kotelnicki, even though I don't want to give him a break for anything, is something he can instill. Like that has to come. And I remember there's been times where this has happened before, where Penn State had a lot of quieter guys in a locker room that were good lead by example guys. And was really because the class before them were very vocal, so they didn't have to be as vocal. But when it was their turn to be vocal and to keep things kind of in line, they were more of like, out just watch me. But you need people that are going to say, hey, no, you need to learn this defense and do that. And I'm guessing Amari Campbell probably didn't feel comfortable early on doing that, given that he was a transfer. And then I don't know how much Tony Rojas really wanted to do that. And he's still fairly young himself. And then I'm guessing Dom DeLuca, from a standpoint of his background and his walk on, I'm not sure how much he felt comfortable doing that. Like, did they have enough guys that were saying, no, you guys aren't doing this right? We're not, we're not where we think you are.
Whether it was you or Sean, whoever came up, who was first with it. I agree with both of you, because there are not enough alpha dogs on this team. It's when you say that, it sounds ridiculous considering how highly rated the 22 recruiting class was. But these guys are not vocal guys. They are lead by example guys. I can go down the list. And it's, you think of some of the teams that Penn State has had, the really great teams. I think about the 08 team. They had a lot of guys. They were player-led. No doubt about that. No doubt about it at all. I think even the 22 team, to an extent, was a player-led team. You haven't seen that. And I don't necessarily blame Drew Aller. I don't blame any of these kids, because you don't want them to be something they're not either. But it's just something that all these guys are just not vocal. But neither was Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren was a lead by example guy. But you had a Jalen Reed, you had a Kobe King, you had a Devon J. Thomas, you had a Keziah Izzard. So I think it's 100% true that there wasn't somebody in the room who just said, all right, let's knock it off. After the first 3 games where, the offense struggled, or after the defense, after the Oregon game, like say, hey, all right, this is it. We're not going to lose again. We're enough of this bull. We're going to get everything together. We're going to do extra work. You haven't heard any of that this year.
I'm not asking for a Tim Tebow like moment when they lost, and then he went on and gave that post game press conference saying, you'll never have another team that will work harder than us, all that. And I think that's written on a statue outside the stadium now. Like, I'm not asking for that level, but I will say this, Rich, and you don't have to knock him, but I will. Like, I respect the passion that Drew Aller had and the desire he had to be great. And I appreciate that he cared so much about being great that, he got emotional after games. But there's also some level of, like, instead of being teary-eyed, like, there's also a certain level of, like, being fired up about it and being pissed off about it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a line there of, I'm very passionate, but I'm also going to take this and it's going to be actionable.
Yeah. But I will say this, if you listen to him after the UCLA game, he came close to having a Tim Tebow moment. And in fairness to him, and there are things that I know that would happen 2 years ago, what led to him and the tears after the Ohio State game 2 years ago. But since then, you haven't seen that. And again, I don't want to say, oh, he was only 19, but he was only 19. Let's put that aside. You did see a little bit of that after the UCLA game. It was very close to a Tim Tebow moment about, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that we don't lose again. And I have no doubt how committed he was, because he was in that building 12 hours a day before his injury. And I just think, we haven't discussed about the offense. We haven't discussed the offensive coordinator. I think a lot of this, whether it was coming from Franklin or it's from Kotelnicki, it's almost like they didn't want to see him take chances. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to 2 years ago when Mike Yurcich was the OC, and it's almost playing not to lose. When you do that, you lose. And I don't know. I'm not going to completely defend Drew. Like, I think there's another guy. I've seen quarterbacks, let's just say, not just at Penn State, at other schools, who weren't voted team captains, but they were good quarterbacks. There were other guys on the team who led, and they benefited from that. In this case, you didn't have that. You didn't have it.
agree with you too, to the point of, and you can say this about a lot of offensive players at Penn State. If Drew Aller went somewhere else, I think he is a potential Heisman quarterback. I actually believe that. And I don't think it's anything from like a mechanical perspective or anything like that. I truly believe that this wasn't a great system for it, but when I look at the way that they handled Drew Aller from the moment he walked in, it was wrong. And they ruined it from the very beginning. The way, even just the way he looked in mop-up duty at Michigan that one year. Like they had already instilled some sort of fear into that young man. And I really think if he would have had a chance, even if he would have transferred this year and Bo would have somehow stayed, if that schedule was a little bit better and Bo was able to stay on the team, like I think he could have had success somewhere else with a fresh start and not kind of been put into the same situation. But I want to go back to one other thing that you had mentioned that I really wanted to hit on, that I think is important to this conversation. Of course, now I just forgot exactly what I was going to say. It is completely gone now. Poof, gone.
Let me get back. Let me get back to the Aller thing. I'm gonna add something.
I'll try to remember while you wrap that up.
So, and maybe you have mentioned this on previous episodes. Remember when James Franklin fired Mike Yurcich and said, we don't have enough easy access passes for Drew. And that was kind of the impetus behind firing Mike Yurcich 2 years ago. If you look at this year, everything has been an ordeal in the passing game. There's no 6, 7, 8 yard routes. There's bubble screens. There's throwing it in the flat. But like I'm talking about just a little curl underneath. You don't see any of that. You saw it at Oregon. Dante Moore, you saw it. You saw it. Oh gosh, who am I missing?
UCLA did it.
What's that?
UCLA did it.
UCLA did it. Sayin even did it. We were thinking about the deep passes. You throw underneath. You take what the defense gives you, and you haven't seen that all year. And even with Grunkemeyer, and maybe what Terry Smith said, a couple weeks ago, because you're not throwing the ball deep, the secondary is jumping and moving up closer and taking away the intermediate routes. I don't know. But those easy throws, you don't see any of them. You haven't seen them from day one, from the Nevada game.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the last thing I was just going to say that I remembered, and I want to stay on this offensive topic, but I was just going to say, you mentioned Devontae Thomas. You could argue Devontae Thomas, to me, was one of the most important members of Penn State's football team for, I think he ended up being here for 6 years. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think he did get technically a 6th year for COVID.
He did. Yeah, because of 2020. Yeah.
And I think his leadership was so undervalued. Military brat kid, he was he was fantastic. Yeah. And in these close games, Penn State's not losing by a lot to Iowa, to Northwestern, to UCLA. Those close games, people can say all this kind of theoretical leadership stuff isn't important, but when you lose by just a handful of points or by just a couple plays that they won last year, by the way, in a lot of closer games, all those little things matter. So we're not talking about large margins, except for obviously this past weekend. This offense, because you talked about Ethan Grunkemeyer a little bit to start this rant that we've been on for a little bit, but you started grading him to a certain degree. And Rich, I'm to the point where I don't even, maybe to the same degree of Drew Aller, I have no idea how good Ethan Grunkemeyer can be. Zero idea. Fair. Because they have not given him a chance to just go out and be himself. Now, I have the same question I had when it was with Drew Aller. Do they know what he's capable of in practice? So they're like, nope, we're not even going to bother with it. Because he did have, 1 or 2 really ugly throws. But I'm also wondering, are they ugly throws because you haven't given him a chance to get in rhythm? I don't know. But do they know more than we do, Rich? Or is it what do we have to lose at Columbus? Down 17. Right. Why are we still throwing screen passes and not just giving someone a chance to be great?
I mean, he hit I'm trying to think who they were to. Well, the one was to Clifford. A couple of really big third down plays, passes in the first half, and then he hit. I mean, the pass to Howard. Again, we'll get to that, I'm sure. But the pass to Howard in the second half, that was a really pretty throw. No, and I don't know how good he is. I know this. I'm impressed that he managed the huddle well in two very hostile environments. How many quarterbacks begin their career at Iowa and at Ohio State, their starting career? That's pretty tough. And they didn't have any communication problems. Everything seemed to run smooth. But as a quarterback, I don't know how good he is. I don't know. I don't know how, I can't tell yet. You're not asking him to do much. And, honestly, whoever the next coach is, chances are they're going to bring in their own guy, whether it's from their previous team, the current team, or from the portal.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate because, like we're talking about Terry Smith potentially using this as his resume. Same thing for Ethan Grunkemeyer, whether that's at Penn State or somewhere else, and he's not even been given an opportunity to do that. Which, again, what are we? What does Penn State have to gain or lose right now from Ohio State? What is
right?
And honestly, Rich, this kind of is a great segue into the Andy Kotelnicki conversation. I'm a little bit disappointed in Terry Smith because he also has very little to lose. And he had said last week that it was going to be challenging to throw vertical against Ohio State, but they needed to do a better job of that. And he said that the younger receivers needed to play more. And against Iowa, he told them that they need to empty the clip. So he's saying all those things. And yet I'm not necessarily feeling that the play calling and the personnel packages are necessarily matching that. Now, he did say like some of that flexibility and the players in and out are still up to the coordinators and the position groups. But at the same token, you are the interim coach. And if this is your one shot to like show everybody that you deserve to be the next head coach, I'm not putting my potential job opportunity. I'm not letting Andy Kotelnicki interview for me. I'm going to do whatever I think is the right way to go about it.
Right. And if Andy, again, if Terry, again, he repeated it today. I mean, he's mentioned it at every availability since he's been hired about throwing the ball down the field. I mean, he's made that very, very clear. And if you're telling Andy, we got to throw the ball down the field, and he's not doing it, okay, maybe because there's only 4 games left here, maybe you don't fire him, but maybe you give Ty Howell the play calling responsibilities or something. I'm with you on that. Like, I mean, he even admitted it today. I almost sound like a broken record. Well, yeah. I mean, but nothing's changed. There's nothing's changed, and you're mentioning it every availability. We understand how you feel, but if you're not going to change it, then don't mention it.
And he did say it was going to change again. I mean, this time it seemed, dare I say, like fool me once kind of situation, but it did seem a little bit more pointed this time. Am I reading that tone correctly?
I didn't think it was any more pointed than
okay.
I didn't think it was any more or less pointed than last week.
Maybe I'm just trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, but it's it just there's something that's missing here because Kyron Hudson, maybe he's not fast. He's got really good hands. But Trevor Pena and Devontae Ross, are they really this bad after the years they had last year? Come on. Something like it just doesn't. I didn't even bring that into the conversation in my column, but that doesn't make any sense either. Like these guys were, Devontae Ross just killed Iowa last year, and he can't get open now. I mean, it doesn't add up. It just doesn't.
I want to say it was Tyler Donahue posted this the other day. He went back and looked at all of the receivers. Yeah, it was here. So this is from Tyler Donahue on 24/7 Sports. Devontae Ross, season before joining Penn State, 76 catches, 1,000 yards, and 11 touchdowns. This year, 23 catches, 280 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Trevor Pena, 84 catches, 941 yards, 9 touchdowns at Syracuse. This year, 26 catches, 230 yards, and 1 touchdown. Kyron Hudson, 38 catches, 460 yards, and 3 touchdowns at USC. This year, 20 catches, 230 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Julian Fleming, 26 catches, 270 yards at Ohio State. His last year, 14 catches, 176 and a touchdown in 16 games. Dante Cephas, 48 catches, 740 yards, and 3 touchdowns at Kent State in just 9 games. Dante Cephas at Penn State, 22 catches for 246 yards and 2 touchdowns in 12 games. And then finally, Malik McClain, season before joining Penn State when he was at Florida State, 17 catches for 206 yards and 3 touchdowns in 13 games. And then with Penn State, 6 catches for 70 yards and 1 touchdown in 13 games.
Yeah, and then what did he do at Arizona State? He did pretty well there too.
And then obviously Trey Wallace is playing pretty well at Ole Miss as well.
I don't know. You've got to be able to throw the ball down the field. I mean, and if a team is if they're taking it away from you, well then you've got to figure out a way to beat that. Like if they're playing too deep zone, well then there's got to be room underneath. Like there has to be. So it's very, very confusing. But I think I don't know what's going to happen in the coaching search. I mean, you and I could talk about 10 guys and nobody really knows, because not right now, not at this point. But you need somebody to come in. I don't know if you want to shift to this right now.
Yeah, we can shift. Yeah. Absolutely.
But the guy I thought was being overlooked or not even mentioned early on is now being mentioned very prominently, is Jeff Brom. Very understated guy, but he's a very good offensive coach and a very good quarterbacks coach. And look at Purdue now, and look when he was there. It's night and day. And I'm not saying he's the guy and do all you can to hire him. No, but I'm saying is they need somebody like that. They need somebody, a quarterback whisperer, somebody that is going to make turn this offense around and make it at least fun to watch, if not successful.
Brom has been either a head coach or a quarterbacks coach for over 20 years. 22 something years was when he first became a quarterbacks coach at Louisville in 2003. I like Brom too, and the point about Purdue is a fantastic one. I mean, they're a dumpster fire, and now they, again, and after Brom left. And the other thing that I think Penn State fans would appreciate is he's won big games. Like they obviously have played well this year, but even when he was at Purdue, I mean, they took down Ohio State. So like they've won big games, and they've and he's found a way to win those as well as build up teams. So I like Jeff Brom too. I do think he was a little bit underrated, and I would be very curious to see how serious he is. I did want to mention just a couple names that since we last had an episode that appear to be off the list. Matt Rule extension at Nebraska, whether or not that was a serious one or just one the media really wanted, that one's officially pretty much gone. Maybe if they really wanted to, they could potentially try to still go after him, but I don't think that's going to happen.
That would be a real tough sell. I mean, I don't know what your viewers and listeners have expressed to you, but the feedback I'm getting from Penn State fans since Franklin was fired is that they didn't want Matt Rule. Correct.
That's what we've gotten on from our listeners as well. And the polar opposite of him, which I think was fun. The complete, chiral opposite of Matt Rule was Urban Meyer. And I think people wanted Matt Rule for the same reasons that they didn't want Urban Meyer. And the people that wanted Urban Meyer were the same reasons they didn't want Matt Rule. Urban Meyer reported, I think, by Athlon Sports the other day, bombed the interview. Wanted the job, bombed the interview.
Yeah.
Didn't have any answers about NIL.
I wouldn't hire him for a lot. There's a lot of reasons why I wouldn't hire him.
Well, and Corey Geiger expressed that very very loudly on Wednesday.
I don't think he is aside from the two trustees who have supported his candidacy, I don't think he's a good fit at Penn State.
He did ring the bell at the Ohio State game.
Yeah, yes, he did.
For whatever that's worth. So I wanted to get those two out there. But Jeff Brom definitely seems to be one that's of interest. The one that Sean has been a dark horse on for a while is Brian Hartline. The biggest thing to me, Rich, that I wanted to ask you about, from what you've gathered, from what you've heard, and your own personal opinion, like, does this have to be a former head coach? Like, does this need to be someone with head coaching experience?
It does not have to be, but I've heard that, again, I'm trying not to, I've heard that that's what the athletic director wants to hire is a head coach, somebody with head coaching experience. That's what I've heard. So, I talked to some Ohio State people over the weekend, and they made it very clear. Ryan Day calls most of the plays at Ohio State. I don't think Brian Hartline's a bad choice, but I think that would be a major, major reach. I could, as one person said to me, he could see him going to a quote, I'm just throwing this name out. My son went there, Syracuse. He could see him going to a coaching there first before getting a job like this. I think when Pat Kraft says the day after he fires James Franklin, I want somebody who can win a national championship in so many words, I don't think it's Brian Hartline. I mean, I think he's shooting as high as he can. And, so be it. I think hold on one second, Corey. Okay.
Sorry about listeners that. Calling in. No.
Yeah, it's my landline. I'm an old school, but no, I think you shoot as for the top guy you can. Is that Kalen DeBoer? Is that Mike Elko? Is it Brent Key? I'm missing somebody. And Jeff Brom. Is it
Bob Chesney is a name that some folks, I don't even know if that is shooting high enough necessarily, with all due respect. That? Bob Chesney, the football coach at Texas State, and then James Madison.
Yeah, I don't think that's big enough. No. I mean, I think this is when you have a $700 million renovation going on, when the new NIL situation, and again, everything seems to be pretty good, but when you're spending all this money, I think you got to shoot for the stars, and I think they need somebody. No offense to Bob Chesney, who obviously is doing a terrific job, but I think they want somebody with a bigger name than that.
Let me correct myself. He was at Holy Cross. I don't know where I came up with Texas State. He was at Holy Cross before James Madison. He is 16-5 at James Madison so far through 2 years. Mike Elko, I want to just quickly get your thoughts there. To me, my first thing was, yes, if we're talking about shooting for the stars, like I thought, sure, if a Marcus Freeman was even considering it, that'd be cool. But as far as like, if Mike Elko is actually interested, he's by far my number one choice. It's not even close. I don't know if that's realistic, though.
Yeah, I don't know if it's realistic because Texas A&M has more money than Penn State. I don't know either, but if he is interested, being a New Jersey guy and a guy who graduated from Penn, then, yeah, you pursue him. Heck, yeah. I like Brent Key, too. Offensive line coach at Alabama for Saban. That's not a bad choice either. Until their loss Saturday to NC State. But really, the guys I've mentioned, and the guy, and I think Donnie probably mentioned this, I'd be okay if they hired Manny Diaz. I would. I mean, I don't think that's a terrible choice. So we'll see. There's a lot of games here over the next few weeks. And the other question is, do you wait for a coach who is in the playoffs? That's really tricky because of the signing date being on December 3rd. If you do that, there's how many guys do you think commit to Penn State on the 3rd? How many guys will wait to see who they hire as the coach? If if they wait for somebody who's in the playoff, then they're going to have to get 20, 25 guys from the transfer portal just to fill the roster.
Yeah, I've thought a long time about this. I don't care about the signing day period at all. I think that's being overblown a little bit too much.
Okay.
If you have a chance to get Mike Elko, I don't care if we have to wait till March to get him. You got to get the best guy.
If it's a chance,
it has to be some sort of done deal where whether it's public information or not, like there has to be a signed contract beforehand that yes, you are coming to Penn State.
That's a whole different,
hush, whatever.
Totally different, completely different.
And if that butchers the recruiting class early, like the recruiting thing now, like yes, you can sign, but if Mike Elko left A&M, I'm pretty sure all those kids have the ability to then go somewhere else. And yes, the transfer portal is only open for a small period, but the kids that come out of the playoffs, they get an opportunity to still go in the transfer portal. And once you're in the transfer portal, you don't have to find your new team within that window. You just have to be in there in that window. So I think it's getting a little bit overblown. Like, yes, in a perfect world, they would have a coach right after Thanksgiving. But realistically, like, how many coaches are not going to be in the playoffs that you realistically would want? If you're trying to swing for the fences, home run higher, like you mentioned.
Right. Yeah, I understand. I'm okay if you feel like there's a guy and you feel like you have a more than 50-50, it's got to be 80-20 chance to get him. Sure. Wait, I get it. But if it's a 50-50 shot, I'm not so sure you wait. I don't know. And especially with Mike Elko being at A&M's going to outspend you. They're going to make a big, whatever you offer, they're going to outbid you. Yeah. So, we'll see. It's going to be fascinating, but the bottom line is, Corey, when this roster next year will be so different than the current one.
And that's a great transition to some of these fan questions. Because I expect 40 to 60% of the team to be different next year at the very least, right? Like there's some names, but that's what makes it so hard to watch the rest of the season, Rich. It's like, okay, Chaz Coleman flashed a little bit on Saturday, and then he's walking out and he was hugging Larry Johnson Sr. Like, well, that doesn't make me feel very good as a Penn State fan that he's talking to Larry Johnson Sr. after the game. And so like, it's hard for me. I talked to some of our buddies like Sean and a couple others in this group chat. I'm like, do we want Kobe Howard and Tyseer Denmark to look good in the last couple of games? Because our luck is they'd go into the transfer portal and find a better home. Like the better they look, the harder it's going to be for us to keep them. Like, do we want to do that? So
that's a really good point.
It's hard for me on the rest of these games to even feel like this is better than blue and white. At least for a blue and white game, we know that they're going to play in the fall. We don't even know if any of these guys are going to be back. So I can't even look at Ethan Grunkemeyer and be like, oh yeah, he can work on this, this, and this. They may not even be here, Rich.
Correct. That's the thing. Like it is, there is going to be such upheaval. I don't know who the next coach is. Obviously, nobody does really.
No one told you yet? You haven't been given
told me yet. But what I'm saying is, whoever that might be, do they keep a Terry Smith or a Ty Howe, or do they just empty the whole building? That's it. I'm bringing in an entirely new building, and then imagine the roster. The roster, Penn State will be lucky if I'll say less than 15 players leave. If it's less than 15, they would be really
amazing.
Lucky. It'd be amazing. And then you have the 20 or 21 seniors whose eligibility is up. There you go. That's it's going to be at least 40 guys are going to be different.
I'm going to try to do some math here. So like what would be 40%? What they're allowed to have 105 on the scholarship now?
Yeah, you're talking 40%, about 40%.
Yeah, it would be 42. It would be 42 people. Yeah. I think that's a bare minimum what I'd be expecting between seniors and people leaving.
Sure. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was a segue into the question from Mudbug on Twitter. Again, Hardcore PSUFB is where you can find us on X. His question: it feels more and more like we are eyeing a complete and total rebuild for 2026, one way or another. How do fans reset their mindset to approach a season this way after several years of coming in as potential conference and playoff contenders? Not an easy shift. I gave a quick short answer and I just said alcohol, but I thought we should dive a little bit deeper into it than just my funny remark there. I mean, Rich, when I was growing up, like, and I'm gonna date myself a little younger here, but like I remember talking to my granddad all the time about like, well, why isn't Penn State like always a perennial threat for the national championship? And I don't know if Joe Paterno set this expectation correctly or how he did it, but the mindset was always like, you're not gonna win a national championship every year. Like there's gonna be stars need to align to a certain degree. You need to put a couple good pieces together, and you need to have a good quarterback. And then obviously you need to get lucky, and things need to kind of work out that way. And that always seemed to be kind of the mindset with Penn State football was like, okay, we might have a couple, and I realized like in the 80s it wasn't necessarily like that, but in the 2000s it definitely was.
Well, no, but Corey, if you look at Joe's year by year, and he even said it, what his goal was is that each class got to contend for a national championship while they were at Penn State. That didn't mean every year, right? But if you look like 82, the team that won, you look at it 70. I was in school in 79. They weren't very good. Then 80, they were a little better. 81, they were better. And then 82, they make a run. 83, they were bad. 84, they were bad. Then 85, 86, 80, it kind of dropped off. And he mentioned that more than a lot of times, let's just say, about that was his goal, that every kid, every class had a chance to win a national championship during their careers. But you're here, it's like, if you don't do it this year or this year, that it's the end of the world. And it's just funny to me when Penn State hasn't won a national championship in 39 years, and next year it'll be 40, that people expect this, like, it's this, there's a little sense of entitlement here among the fan base, that we should be playing for a national championship. And that's okay to set that as a goal, but you haven't won one in almost 40 years.
Right. And I think it's a line, right? Because I don't look at Penn State in the same light that I look at Ohio State. Like Ohio State is reloading and doing that. Penn State's never going to be to that level. I've always been to the mindset of you have to have great quarterback play and you have to have a couple of the right pieces and you're going to give yourself a chance. And of course you got to get a little lucky and you got to have, the ball's got to bounce your way a little bit. That's always been my mindset of Penn State. Like I'm never expecting them to win a national championship or even contend for one every year. Now today with the playoff, like, yeah, I think in a 12-team playoff, they should probably make the playoff 3 out of the 4 years at the worst case.
That is fair. Yes. But 100%.
That shift to whatever we could potentially expect for 2026. Because here's my thing, Rich. I know everyone's pointing to Indiana. But I want to say this was somebody over on 24/7 Sports said this at one point when I was listening to a podcast, and I don't remember who said it, but I think it was a really, really important one. Everyone wants to look at Indiana, and they want to say, look how quickly Indiana was able to turn that around with the transfer portal era and NIL. I think we're going to get to a different era now with the rev share, where we're not going to have as much Wild West crazy flips because there's more money now that players and teams can use to sustain a roster and have a little bit more stability. I don't think it's going to go back to the way it was before NIL, but I don't think it's going to be as fluid as it was maybe with what Indiana did to bring in, 50, 60 guys to revamp a roster in 2 years.
I think Indiana is an outlier. I think it's a very, very rare thing. Give Cignetti credit. He deserves it. No doubt about it. But that's an outlier. And whoever is the next coach with an almost a 40% of the roster different, I think it's going to take a couple years till Penn State gets back to where it was after last season. I do. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's going to be 10 years or anything like that, but it's going to take at least 2 years. I mean, unless they strike
quarterback
gold, a repeat what Indiana does, but nobody else has done it. Nobody else has done it.
I think it's quarterback play. I think that is what can save
That's
you and
important.
make you a lot better than you actually are. You can have a quarterback that automatically puts you higher up. And in some cases, it's been like the opposite for Penn State. Like you could argue if they just, and Sean Clifford was serviceable, but if they just had a little bit better quarterback play, like they potentially could have maybe made it to a national championship or at least a 4-team playoff, with the defenses that they had and some of that running game that they had. You could even argue if they had a little bit better quarterback play the last couple of years, that could have potentially been the difference in making a national championship. And that's just something that, like, yeah, even Trace had his moments and he was good, but he wasn't necessarily consistently good. Like he also lost them the Pitt game. He also lost them the USC game to a certain extent. Like there was moments.
He lost the Michigan State game in 2017.
Yes. So they really haven't had, I think of a team, a program that I would maybe compare Penn State to. Like I think Clemson's a perfect example where, yes, they had that little run there, but I don't think that run was due to a dynasty to the same level of Alabama. They had that run because they had Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence back to back. Like when you can have that level of quarterback play, that's going to change everything. And look what's happened since. They got a 5-star kid in Cade Klubnik, and he hasn't been very good. And they've struggled because of that. So I think that's unfortunately Mudbug. My approach is I think you should always compete for the conference championship. I think that's a fair thing. But also when you've got Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon in your conference, like that's probably not too realistic either. But it is going to stink for a little bit, Mudbug. Dorito Bandit asked about Brent Key or Brian Hartline. I think you mentioned right there that you'd prefer Brent Key over Brian Hartline. We talked about
I would take Brent Key over Brian Hartline. Yes, I would.
We talked a lot about the receivers with Kobe Howard, so we're good there. But here's a good optimistic question for you, Rich. This one's from a longtime listener, Einstein von Braun, Mr. And he says, this season has been an absolute dumpster fire. Oh, I'm sorry. An absolute dumpster fire of shit, to be specific. What is one reason we should be optimistic about the rest of the season and onward?
Oh, wow. Man, Kobe Howard. I'm trying to think. I mean, Grunkemeyer, again, maybe he gets better and better, but how much are they going to allow him to do? I mean, the only thing that I could think of is that some of these guys, the seniors who are draft eligible, when they're on the field, realize I got 4 games left. This is my audition. It's been bad so far. I got 4 chances here to make this better, not change what happened in the first 8 games, but better. But I mean, I that's a great question. I don't know. I mean,
I can go a little optimistic here. I don't think it can be anything about the players or the coaches because I just don't know if they're even going to be here. So it's hard to pull any optimism from any of that. I do genuinely think that Pat Kraft is the right answer, athletic director. Okay. I do think he's going to get this right. And
his job may depend on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we said this the other day, like between this and the stadium rebuild, like will be his legacy at Penn State. And I think he has the right mindset. And what I mean by that is what I think he looks for in a coach. That's why I think Mike Elko would be a perfect fit because I think those two, I can just see them headbutting every day. Like I think what he's looking for in a head coach is things that I think work correctly in college football today. As far as, yes, you need to go out and you need to manage the transfer portal and you need to manage a budget and you need to manage a lot of personalities and you still got to recruit and you got to do all those things. But you still got to develop kids and you still got to do things the right way. And I do think Pat Kraft understands all of those components. And so optimistically, it's going to get, and Terry Smith mentioned this as far as it like not getting, they're not through the storm yet again today. We're not done. Like most likely Indiana is going to shit down our throat on Saturday. And then, like you said, 40 to 60% of the people are going to probably leave, and most of the coaches. So like, we are not at the bottom of the valley, but I do think, and again, maybe I'm just optimistic and hopeful to a fault here, but I do think the athletic director in charge of getting us through this is the correct one.
I won't disagree with you. I'm not maybe as convinced as you are. I think let's see who he hires. Let's see who Penn State ends up with. And I think if he can get one of the guys that we've mentioned, then I think, okay, he did a good job. And I don't know if it'll work out or not, but yeah, they're the guys who I would target too. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying, I think that's like the storm is going to last until the next coach is hired.
Yeah. And it has to be someone that can capitalize on the momentum on the recruiting trail. Like even James Franklin had lost some of that momentum on the recruiting trail. Like the classes weren't as fun, as exciting. And to me, it's got to be someone that is exciting to that degree, whether it's exciting because they're winning national championships or at least close to contending for one, and the proof is in the pudding, or they are going to bring that excitement to the recruiting. Like they've got to recruit Pennsylvania better than they even did under James Franklin. They've got to recruit, and this is another Mike Elko situation, Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey better than they did. And so that to me is I don't know if it's going to work out, but I sure do hope that it will. There's just more questions about dumpster fire was brought up twice in all of this, and we talked about what this team did, and recovery time. We knocked out a lot of your fan questions today without necessarily bringing you folks up individually, so I apologize for not going through all of them, but I'm just sifting through anything that we may have missed. Someone when we asked her question just said, "Why bother?" LOL. So the people are down very hard, Rich.
I'm curious what kind of reception will the crowd give the team now that James Franklin is gone and Drew Aller's out for the season?
That's a good. I would say this.
I don't know. I really don't.
It's a weird dynamic now because I don't boo. Maybe just I don't like to boo people. It doesn't. But to be honest with you, Rich, the moral high ground that I stood on to be against booing has been reduced. It is not as high of a ground to stand on because of the fact that these kids are now getting paid millions of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that.
And now some folks from Philly are going to boo no matter what. I mean, I'm pretty sure after the Eagles won a championship one year, they literally booed them going in the half during the first game back. So like, I get that part of the fan base.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a certain level of just fight. And Rich, I don't know about you. I don't know. I think some of the players have, but I don't want to say they've given up, but I wouldn't say either that I thought there was a resounding level of effort. Like there was 110% being given at all times. I think certain individuals have, but I don't know if it's necessarily been like UCLA, right? Like there seemed to be a revival, right? Didn't really feel like there was this, you fire your head coach and everyone rallies around the interim head coach and you go out and win a game. Like I think about the Georgia Tax Slayer Bowl all the time for some reason when I think about that, and how like Georgia had no reason to beat Penn State in that bowl game that year. And and they did, and they rallied around the interim coach, and UCLA just did. We didn't get, I don't think, that level of jolt from firing Franklin.
I thought I saw more of an effort at Iowa than I did at Ohio State.
I'd agree with that.
I can't say I saw somebody give up on a play or anything like that. I just sensed watching the game from the press box that the effort was 110% against Iowa. Maybe it wasn't 110 against Ohio State.
Let me rephrase it, Rich, because I don't know if effort's the right word I want to use. How about, I don't see enough people having fun out there. Like,
well, you have fun when you win.
Yeah, but even the big plays, even the good plays, right? Like, even when Keon Wiley laid out the running back early in that game, and like he had a little bit of an excitement, but like the team wasn't overly excited on defense about. And I just feel like there's like it feels like it's almost being, and I don't know if it's designed by the coaching staff. It just seems like everything is so tight right now, and it was like that even before Franklin was fired.
Yeah, what I'll say, we didn't talk about this, but it was, in fact, Donnie and I talked about it on the phone Saturday night while I was waiting for somebody in the press box. That hit that Caleb Downs had on Khalil Dinkins was a cheap shot. Should have been targeting. Should have been, right? Where were the Penn State players to get in Caleb Downs' face? I'm not saying to take a swing at him. I'm just saying respond to him and just go up to him and say, hey, watch your back next time because I'm coming after you, or whatever. Right. Or maybe don't say anything, but then the next play, somebody lay him out. And on a football play, I'm not talking about taking his knees out or anything like that. I'm just talking about hitting him hard on a football play. You didn't see that. That is, to me, and Terry Smith was asked about it today by Mike Gross, and about, well, we let the referees handle that. No, you talked about a player-led team. If you have strong leadership, there would have been 3 guys in Caleb Downs' face, and there weren't.
That's a great point, Rich. That is an excellent point, because at that point in the game, I don't even care if we get a 15-yard penalty.
Correct. The game was over. Right. Exactly.
That's a fantastic point, and that is something where, again, Khalil Dinkins is not like he's a new guy to the team. Like, he was probably looked up to by a lot of players on it. You would hope so. And so, like, that's a fantastic point. And there's other.
They should have had his back. They should have had his back there. And I'm not swinging. They're going to swing at Caleb Downs with a helmet on. No, but you go up to him or you push him and just say, hey, that's like, we're not going to let this happen.
It's what you do. Like, every time, the hockey and goalie, holds it, like, and someone gets a little too close to the crease.
Yep.
You just let them know, hey, that was a little close, bud.
Yeah. We're here. We're not going to, don't even think about trying it again. Or you go up to them and say, you better watch your back the rest of the game, because we're coming after you, or something. Nobody came near him.
That's a fantastic point. There was other moments too. Like, there was a late hit on Julian Sayin on early in the game. And again, maybe I'm just rooted incorrectly on this, but I am to the belief I didn't even mind the penalty, because I'm like, any showing of effort or desire to want to hit somebody or anything like that, to, it's the same thing. Show you that I'm here. I'm going to be here all night, Julian. Get used to this. Anything to make him think twice about hanging in the pocket, or to maybe have a little bit. I was okay with anything like that, because you need to play a little bit of the mind games, a little bit of the gamesmanship. But I think that's a great way to wrap up the show tonight, is that 2 things to me. That play, now that you mention it, is a perfect example of kind of the whole season. And I would just say the touchdown that Jeremiah Smith had late, that Zakee Wheatley tipped, is a perfect summation of the last 10 years of playing Ohio State. Like, to a T, like, that close most of the time. And it's just, they have a little, like, Great play by Zakee Wheatley, better play by Jeremiah Smith.
Yep.
That's been Penn State, Ohio State the last 10 years.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't realize how great a catch it was that Smith made because we didn't have a good angle with the TVs until I got back to my hotel room.
It's I want to say I feel better afterwards, but honestly, I don't know if I actually do feel any better after this episode, Rich. But it's always fantastic speaking with you. I appreciate you again hopping on last second and saving my butt, but providing a lot of insight, a lot of desired insight. And I didn't even say anything about you wearing a UCLA sweatshirt on the show tonight. So
I love the colors. Love them.
How do you keep a white sweatshirt that clean? That's what I really want to know.
I just bought it when I was there, and it's the first time I wore it today. It's my son lives in LA. He went to Syracuse, but I love the colors. I'm old school. John Wood and UCLA basketball.
You're not eating barbecue anytime with that thing on.
No. I took it off to eat dinner tonight.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Rich, I think people know where they can find you, but please, where can they find you? And you don't have to list every single paper. Like it's a huge flex, but we know you pretty much write for every paper in half of the state at this point.
It's funny. It's 12 newspapers, and one's in New Jersey, the Trentonian, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Hazleton, Pottsville, Allentown, Reading, Norristown, Lansdale, Westchester, and Delaware County. And if I missed any, I'm sorry. And that's any of those MNG papers. And also at Nittany Rich on Twitter. And if anybody wants to email me anything, it's rscarcella@readingeagle.com.
Dropping your email address to our listeners probably wasn't the wisest idea. You're about to get all sorts of stuff. Probably.
That's okay.
Rich, appreciate you being here. For everyone watching live, make sure you've liked the video and you've subscribed on YouTube, or if you're listening on podcasts, make sure you're subscribed there. A lot of you guys think you're subscribed, and then I can see the stats. A lot of you listen daily, if not weekly, and then you're not still subscribed. So I know you're out there. Just take 5 seconds and do that. We'll be back on Wednesday. Landon Tangwall is joining me, filling in again for Sean Kane. But until next time, that is Rich Scarcella. I'm Corey Listoki. You've been watching and listening to Hardcore Penn State Football. Good night.